everyone, welcome to another show of Relentless Reviews. I'm your host as always, Joshua Englander, but today I am with a very special guest, Chay Sorkin from UnionJackGaming. What's going on, man?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm just fantastic. So today we're going to be reviewing Alan Wake's American Nightmare DLC on Xbox Live only. It's worth 1,200 Microsoft points. It's the first time I've ever done a collaboration review, so I'll try not to take up too much of the time. So, let's get into the story first. What did you think about it?
I thought it was okay actually. I didn't think it was good as the first Alan Wake, but I found it. I suppose I found the first hour very good, but then as it repeated itself, I got really tired of it, and by the end, I wanted it to be over. It's like I think I did a complete 180 in the middle. But as for Alan Wake goes, it's totally different compared to the first game. Not as good at all, on a touch from the first Alan Wake. I think they just put this in here because they needed an Xbox Live Arcade title to help them build the cash to make a second game. Right. But in my opinion, the story was pretty crappy towards the end, simply because of the repeating. Overall, yeah, I didn't really like it that much.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You know, I felt the story, you consider the story in the original Alan Wake, how good it was. I mean, it kind of blew my mind, and the fact that this story was so pale in comparison, I was really disappointed by that. Yes, it is not a full-fledged sequel, but I really would have liked to have seen just as good of a story incorporated in, and they really didn't take the time and effort clearly to make as good of a story as the original Alan Wake, and I think that I definitely agree with you on that. So, what did you think about the graphics?
The graphics, I think, was probably the best part of the game. I think that they were on par with the first game, and that the animations were much more improved from the first game. The only one thing I have against it is that some of the character models repeat themselves, and some of the like textures pop in. The loading is quite long. But other than that, I would say that the game's graphics are probably the best part of the game, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, yes, it is very similar to the original Alan Wake, but they did improve the animation greatly. And let's face it, it still looks good even if, you know, you don't update the engine at all, because the original Alan Wake looked amazing. You consider the atmosphere it tried to show and how the graphics presented it was amazing. And here, the graphics are still very, very good to me, and I really am not that disappointed that they didn't try to improve on it greatly, because honestly, I mean, what is there that much to improve that other games still have been trying to catch up with? For example, like some of the wind effects with the trees are still there.
The lighting effects as well are insane.
Yeah, the lighting effects, the shading effects are all still fantastic. I will say this, though. I still think some of the characters didn't look all that great up close, but that's just my opinion.
But in terms of Xbox Live Arcade titles, this is probably one of the better looking ones. Definitely top 5. But as you say, compared to disc retail games, I would say this would come out as a great looking title even on them because of the engine that they use.
Right.
The character models, like you said, up close are a bit crappy, but you can forgive that considering the memory file and how much they can fit in to be able to fit on the arcade.
Right. Alright, so I definitely agree with you. So what did you think about the sound in the game?
The sound in the game was ranged from really good to really crap. I mean, the voice acting is a mixed bag. I think some of the characters are good, but none of them really go on to, you know, being really bad. I'd say it goes from good to average. There's only one exception, which is basically the woman who works in the observatory, which is the worst voice actress in a game I've played this year. She just sounds so bland and robotic. I hated talking to her, and I got away from her as quick as possible when playing the game. As for music, a totally different style compared to the first Alan Wake. Instead of atmospheric music and building tension and stuff like that, this game goes for a more action movie feel, a more grindhouse feel. For instance, they've added licensed music, which I don't know if it should be an Alan Wake game, because when I heard it, at least from my standpoint, I was surprised. But I think it added a bit to the game, which was alright. But then again, this is Alan Wake. This isn't Gears of War or Uncharted, so I don't know if it fits. But overall, I think the sound was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think that the voice acting was very, very inconsistent. You mentioned the woman in the observatory was very, very annoying. The doppelganger, Alan Wake's doppelganger, I felt was very annoying. I know you found him pretty funny, but I just didn't like him at all. I felt that Alan Wake himself was obviously very good. I felt the rest of the voice acting was all right, and honestly, overall, I guess it just kind of makes it mediocre in general. I think the licensed music, I definitely agree. I mean, you consider the soundtrack at Alan Wake, the original, was amazing. It was so atmospheric, and I just loved it. And maybe that's just because I'm kind of a film nerd as well as a video game nerd, but I just thought it was so well done. In this one, with the licensed music, it just made it feel too much, I think, like an action film rather than Alan Wake. And
Yeah, and
that
what
was
you
the
touched on
problem.
as well about Mr. Scratch, the doppelganger. I
Right.
think people are gonna either love or hate this character. Obviously, the same voice actor that voice acts Alan Wake has to play him and has to play him in the actor scenes, like the live action.
Right.
What I will say is, I believe he is the video game version of Nicolas Cage. I mean, Nicolas Cage, you're either on one side of the fence or on another side of the fence. You either believe he's really funny when he's acting like a jackass, or he annoys the shit out of you when he's acting like a jackass. And it's like you're gonna love or hate him. In my opinion, I loved him because I thought he was hilarious playing the villain. But as I know, you didn't find him that great.
All right. So, what did you think about the gameplay?
I thought it was very reminiscent of the first game, but I feel that they've overloaded it with the action in this
Yeah.
title. The first game had many moments where you was shooting the Taken, but it also had many moments of great atmosphere and tension building, which this game just sorely misses. And I think that if they had kept that in this downloadable content, they would have had a much more better response from critics and gamers alike. What I did find good though was the addition of more weaponry, even though I felt that some of the weaponry didn't need to be there, like for instance the nail gun or maybe the M16 was going a bit too far.
Right.
I found that the addition of new weaponry was a bit more fun and added a bit more variety to the game, but I only think they did that because they needed to add more weaponry to the game for the Fight Until Dawn mode, which is obviously the survival type mode, which is like Horde. But like I said, that could, for some fans, ruin it for them because it sounds like they're making it more action oriented, which I personally don't want.
Right. I definitely agree with that. The controls still feel great to me. They always have been in an Alan Wake game. I always felt like using the flashlight, although it's not used quite as much in this game, but it's still the controls are still feel very responsive, so that's really good. I do think the action, even though I felt there was a little too much of it and it got way, way too repetitive, there was clearly a lot more emphasis put on the action, and it shows. They definitely improved a lot of the action, and I felt like in that sense, if you're like someone who's looking for that horror action kind of DLC, this actually might suit your bill, but I do think it got way, way too repetitive, and that may be in part thanks to how bad the story was, but it's still just, I
Yeah.
really felt over time it became an endurance, like, oh, you're
I
doing the
think
same
the
thing.
repetitive level design as well, like the locations
Yeah.
and the enemy types, didn't help either. That with a bad story didn't really help the game in terms of enjoyability. But what I will say is I can understand what they're going for with the repeating of locations, but that would work much better in a TV show like the Twilight Zone or something like that. It wouldn't work in a video game form because I don't think I think they think they're being smart by doing this, but they really aren't because gamers don't like playing the same sections for 3 times.
Right.
Variety is, as they say, the spice of life, and this game has none of it.
So what do you think about the arcade mode?
I thought it was quite good, but it does add longevity to the game. It has leaderboards, so if you're looking to beat some scores, I think you'll like it. But I don't think that you're going to like it if you've got games like Gears of War in your library and games like that have horde mode, because this game doesn't even like stand a touch near those games.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of ways of Undead Overrun from Red Dead Redemption's DLC Undead Nightmare as well. And I definitely agree. It's compared to those, compared to Gears of War's Horde mode as well, it just doesn't, it pales in comparison. There's no other way to put that, so I definitely agree with that. Okay, so overall, I think, let's get some scores in here. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Again, I think the story just isn't there compared to the original Alan Wake. And, you know, you consider just the voice acting inconsistencies, even though the gameplay is still very good and the graphics, obviously, I mean, you compare them to other DLC games and arcade games out there, it definitely is up to par and probably above and beyond, but, I mean, otherwise, just isn't there for me. What do you think?
I think I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 as well. The story, like you said, was just bland compared to the first game, and I don't think it's got the same feel as the first game, which is what the biggest thing the first game had going for it. To be honest, I feel like Remedy just made this game just to get out more copies of the Alan Wake series in order to make a sequel, which is understandable because the first game didn't sell as well. But that's no excuse to bring out a mediocre game. I think that if you love Alan Wake, you should definitely pick it up. But if you don't, and you're new to the series, and you think this looks interesting, I suggest you pick up the first Alan Wake because it's probably about the same price now anywhere, and it's bigger and better. Yeah, I just think it was disappointing in every way. I was really looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. So that's another show of Relentless Reviews. As always, if you liked what you've seen, remember to subscribe. Like the video or favorite the review if you enjoyed it. This is Chay Sorkin from UnionJackGaming. I'll put the link to his channel in the description. You can go check him out. So that's another show for Relentless Reviews. I'm your host as always, Joshua Englander. Goodbye, everybody.
See you guys.